All right, what's going on? Hey, it's Doug here. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. I see we have Marcus on, and it is the Christmas Eve live stream here. We're going to do sort of a year in review. I'm just going to ramble on for a little while here. I thank you if you did hop on. Let me know if you can hear me. I think you probably can. And if you have any questions or comments, or let me know where you're coming in from. I know some people, it's like Christmas Eve and it's the sort of nighttime. And I assume either, people are trying to get away from their family or something like that, or you got free time. It could be during the day. Some people are working potentially. And I have been slacking a little bit on doing these live streams, which I kind of knew there was potential for that. But anyway, I did one last week and it was fun. So I think I'll go ahead and keep it going, even though, like I said, today it's Christmas Eve and there might not be many people that'll hop on. But I checked on with my wife and I was like, hey, we don't have anything planned. If I do a live stream in the middle of the day, is that cool? She approved, so here we are. And a couple quick things, little housekeeping. Let me check my show notes. Linkify. So Linkify is a partial sponsor for some of these live streams, including today. You can save 10% with the coupon code Doug. They do digital PR. They got me some just amazing links. They got me one at NASDAQ.com, one at Ahrefs, one at Yahoo Finance. So they do an awesome job, even with Connectively. That's what Haro rebranded to. They do a great job. So they're getting links for me, running the campaign, and I'll tune in. They're good folks there, and they've been weathering the storm, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit today, is weathering the storm of all the Google updates and the shift in the online niche site space and all that kind of stuff. Additionally, one side note, one fun other side note is that I sent this live stream link out to the Niche Site Project email list, which is typical. That's often exactly what I do. But I also sent it out to the Mile High Fi email list. And that is my other podcast on personal finance and financial independence and early retirement. So I have no idea. Let me know if you're from the Mile High Fi crew. I have not sent out any live stream links, but since I was a little unsure if there were going to be many people hopping on, I was like, well, I better send it out to as many people as I can. So here we are. And I'm going to do like a little recap of like my overall year. And I was like, you know what? I almost need to like go back into my calendar and see like what I was doing. Number one, the year started off with, I guess, some enthusiasm a little bit. I had this project that I wanted to start. I wanted to start a new podcast, which I actually did. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. But it started off me thinking, we're going to do some work this year. And then my wife decided she was going to retire. This was on our radar for a little while, but I didn't know it was so imminent. And even when I knew that it was coming, I was like, she's kind of been waffling back and forth on this. So I don't even know if she's going to do it. So anyway, we'll get into some of that. And Wesley's on, friend of the show, Wesley Oakes. And if you have questions or if you have comments or if you want to give a little summary of your year, that is cool. You can put it in the chat. I'll read it out. And quick note. So number one, we have a question that came in from Kim. Kim McQueen wrote a question in the chat early on before we started. Like she wrote it like a few hours ago. I asked for follow-up, but here's the question that she wrote. And in fact, it won't even show up on the overall chat thing. So let me copy and paste it here so I could pop it up on the screen. Okay, so here we're doing it. All right. Kim says this. I've been following you for years. I have a question for you. How come you keep saying that website and affiliate sites are dead, but all the other guys are saying the opposite? I don't understand. Kim. All right. Kim, thanks for the support over the years. I said this, and like I said, she didn't provide any other details because I basically asked a follow-up question. So my answer was this. Who are the people that are saying this? Like, I don't know who is saying that, but that doesn't seem to add up. Like, basically everyone that I have talked to, they're like, blogging, not so good, wouldn't spend time on it. Websites, kind of a dead end. SEO for Google, not worth your time. And the Google search is kind of, it's not what it used to be. It's a bit of a joke. All right. So number one, who is saying that? Because I'm not sure who. In fact, the last couple of weeks, one of the main topics is like Authority Hacker, one of the major players in the affiliate marketing space. They ended their course, which I think they said they were making, I want to say they mentioned like 8 figures. So that's like 10 million plus. I could be off by a little bit, but not much. It was a lot of, closing down a course is a big deal. So they did close it down last week. I closed mine several months ago, and I stopped promoting it like 18 months ago, very long time ago. And man, it's crazy. Okay, so I say, what guys are saying that? Who is saying that sites are alive? And then the second question, which we should all ask all the time, especially if you're watching YouTube videos, is what are the people selling and what incentive do they have to say affiliate marketing and websites are not dead? I would suggest they're either selling a course, they're selling a product that supports the niche site world. That could be a keyword research or marketing tool. That could be a theme. That could be a plugin. That could be, did I already say course? Any sort of product related to website management, including like internal linking tools and stuff like that. The other folks, like I said, the tools were extremely profitable. I assume they took a huge nosedive as people like canceled their subscriptions to keyword research tools, because why the fuck do you need them? If you're not, if your website dies, like, then what do you do? And then next, there's a whole set of services. And I know I don't think SEO is going to be dead completely, but there was a pretty significant market of people that were in our space with content websites that were purchasing services, whether they're, a SaaS, some sort of a content writing tool, some sort of a topical map tool. It's like, if someone was working on that in the last few months, it's like probably time to just shut it down. Like, just, it's a sunk cost. Go do something else. Then we got, any sort of link building or other services business, which were huge, or anything in that whole area. So if you go to some agency, they'll have like a suite of products, and a lot of it was kind of shitty anyway. And then people would just stop buying it because their website died. So Kim, the answer is, I think those people are selling something. Also, I don't know. There could be valid areas. So the caveat here is, I hear local businesses or e-commerce sites have been doing fine or better. However, there's a lot of volatility that doesn't make me think that it's worthwhile. And the fact that I decided to stop working on them, or even like working on projects, like, I mean, that's what it comes down to. Okay, let me hit the chat here, and then we'll do some of the recap. And I wrote this in my Mile Hi-Fi email that I sent out earlier today. By the way, if you're a Mile Hi-Fi listener or viewer out there, do let me know. So today, I'm probably just going to talk about stuff I did. All right, so that's where we ended up. Okay. And Marcus says, we're the ones that have no life that joined. No, you have a life. It's cool. Everybody's doing great. Thanks for joining me today on Christmas Eve. All right. Wesley says, happy to be here today and didn't expect to see me live. All right. Wesley says this, I exited authority sites with a 300K sale before the shit hit the fan. You bought a Subway franchise. Okay, cool. Yeah, it was someone asked, I think, like, why a Subway? I think people, I've heard you have to have a few of them to make it really profitable, but that's cool. All right. There's Subways everywhere. Marcus says this, if websites and affiliate marketing are dead, what are the ways to move forward? So overall, I would say it's unclear. So I don't have the answer. I don't think other people do. There are so many opportunities because everything's sort of flipped upside down. So I think it might take a year or two for there to be some clarity on things that do work. And I don't know exactly where that'll land, but because sort of the incumbent players that had 8, 10, 15 years of experience doing this affiliate site model, it made it more competitive and harder, but the playing field is kind of leveled. And I mean, we have all sort of been talking about some of the things that you can get into, but right now I don't think there's like a playbook. There's not like mature courses where people have a framework that you can follow. It is very unclear. And I believe in times where it's unclear, the opportunities are bigger because you will be finding something that is not as saturated, it's not as defined. And one of the reasons that Google has had a hard time with their algorithm updates and causing all these unintended consequences is because the business model was mature and there were clear vulnerable points that were exploited. So Google had to figure out how to patch them. So if you find something that's working and it's undefined and there's not as many people doing it, you have a chance to do really well before everyone catches up and starts emulating the thing that is working so well. And further, one thing that people have been spending time on and seems to be viable is the Amazon influencer program. And I interviewed Tony. I mean, I think it's been about a couple years now. So at least a couple years, like that business model has been going pretty well. And if you were there early and like you doubled down and worked really hard on it for the last 2 years, you're probably doing awesome. And my hunch is it's beginning to get saturated and it's not going to be the same opportunity. I mean, it's not the same opportunity now than it was a year ago. And as it gets more saturated and more people are doing it, then there will be sort of more adjustments to the system, which will, at the end of the day, it'll end up paying you less. All right, we'll keep going here. Oh, Corey, what's going on? All right, so there's good discussion in the crowd. Appreciate that. People are talking about paid ads. So Corey mentions paid ads, blah, blah, blah. Wesley's talking about Subway franchises. And all right, we're going to keep going down here. All right. DJ Chuck says, Authority hacker shutting down their top selling course is all you need to know. They held out for a long time, sticking to the belief that maybe Google would get back to its senses in 2024. Well said. Yeah. If it's like a well-known, profitable course, they kind of, I feel like in our little world, they were sort of the top podcast, top YouTube channel. They attend conferences, they were out doing stuff, and they had a lot of data. And my hunch is, it just wasn't viable anymore. And Marcus says, I guess a lot of us doing SEO/blogging are a bit lost, trying to find new ways to earn money. And Marcus also says, how about people earning affiliate commissions with YouTube videos? I guess there are still opportunities. Actually, and I'll give you a great example, and then I'll start talking about myself, because that's what this whole thing is about. I mean, we'll be lucky if I just skip that part and we have a nice discussion. All right. Good example. I recently bought an e-bike, and I had a couple friends tell me, you should check out Ebikes. Rented one in actually Cuyahoga Valley out in Ohio. There's a long greenway. Anybody been out there? Super long greenway. Got my wife on an e-bike. That was my second time riding one. Unfortunately, that one was like a single speed. And it felt a little underpowered, but overall, great experience, pretty fun. So over time, I was like, I think I might get an e-bike. I didn't really like riding my mountain bike. Just kind of uncomfortable. The ergonomics weren't quite right, which turns out you can adjust those pretty easily. Whole point is I watched probably, 25 hours of YouTube reviews on e-bikes, and those are fairly expensive, right? They're generally more expensive than a comparable bike of the same quality because they have the motor, they have like an expensive battery in there, and then a handful of accessories. So anyway, I ended up getting a Electric Express 750. And I think I probably clicked through one of the affiliate links of the dozens of videos that I watched. And I don't know what they pay, but I think it could be pretty decent. And overall, there are so many different companies out there and so many different bikes to review. And you could see sort of the more mature channels, they had beautiful studios. I mean, they had like pro level, like warehouses, and they were doing some serious stuff. They obviously had a few people employed because multiple people were doing reviews, and they had like a huge, I mean, you could just see the inventory of all the bikes that were sent to them, probably most of them for no charge, just to do the review. Additionally, there were some jokers like me, right, who didn't have like a pure professional studio, and they had just like 30 fucking bikes in their garage, and they're recording it on their phone. They might have a lav mic, and they're not doing anything sophisticated. They're just like talking about the bike, handful of the features. They'll do some voiceover, some light editing. They probably have like a little GoPro, and they'll put their phone on the handlebars on some mount, and then they'll just video themselves doing a test drive, and they'll do a decent job reviewing it. And you get to hear what like just a regular person has to say about it versus like the companies that have the big studios or whatever. Like, I think they're big enough. They have to make sure they're not too critical of any certain thing of any bike because they don't want to piss off the manufacturer. The point is, something like that, high ticket item, e-bikes are selling like crazy, and the commissions are probably pretty good. So if I paid $1,800 for my bike plus the accessories and all that stuff, if they're getting like 10%, that's pretty good. And then if you look at the number of views that those videos get, it's pretty insane. Now, there's a chance they used to get a ton of SEO traffic, and now they're not getting any. So overall, there are opportunities. And to your point, Marcus, about affiliate commissions with YouTube videos, yes, totally possible. One little tiny potential flaw is, just like I said, I watched tons of videos. So a lot of the videos were like 10 to 30 minutes long or so. So I watched tons of videos from different creators, and I had no allegiance. I wasn't trying to like necessarily click through a specific link or anything like that. So basically there are opportunities, and there's like tons of, different areas like that. And I mean, some industries are going to be like not as saturated, and some will get more saturated as time goes on, and that sort of thing. Okay, we'll keep going here. Wesley says, anyone telling you to start a new niche site or authority site today, I would not trust them unless you're not in it for the money. And that's what I've said. So, okay, we can't tell the future, but I would say there's going to be some sort of a swing back to blogging in a few years. It'll be a little while. It'll be smaller. It'll be different. But there will be people that want to start writing and producing content in a blog, and then they don't care about the money. I mean, that's what blogging was in the beginning. People were doing it to like share their stories and write, not to earn money. And then when the incentive showed up to earn money, then things changed a little bit. And then people that weren't doing it because of the desire to write, they were doing it to earn money, things shifted, and then like marketers got in there and abused any of the things that were exploitable. And Wesley further says, websites have their place, but not as a primary source of revenue. Well said. All right. Josh says, I started a new site, but more of a membership around things I love and talk about all day anyway. Who knows if it'll be successful, but let passion out there instead of Facebook and other non-owned websites. Yeah, perfectly said, Josh. Like, and that's the thing. People will produce the content in the medium that makes sense. So maybe 10 years ago, someone would have like an awesome blog about hiking and going out and exploring, different parts of the country through hiking and with the interest of being outdoors and stuff. Now, if someone wrote all that, not as many people would probably find it. Some people would still read it. People still read blogs, but they're probably not getting there through SEO searches. They're probably landing there because they follow the person somewhere else. And that said, social media is where people would share those things because YouTube and video have, they're more popular now, basically, whether it's on YouTube or if it's video on other formats. So, video is the way to go. So overall, I would say video is the way to go. You could pick your platform that you want to work on. I think YouTube is probably the most independent, in air quotes, and provides the most flexibility and maybe sort of a longer life of a piece of content, where more traditional social media has a shorter lifespan and you have to keep producing content. Other place, Marcus mentions newsletters. So yeah, we've been covering newsletters for the last month or two. I just published an interview yesterday with Michael Kaufman. Yep, that's his name. Michael Kaufman and Jazz from Winnipeg a few weeks ago. They're doing really well. Sounds like you can get started pretty quickly, and it's something you own. Like, a newsletter is way more independent, and that's the way to go. All right. And Josh mentions that there's a free tier for the membership and paid for others. Marcus says you still visit a lot of sites daily despite all the AI search engines. I guess there's still a part of the population interested in it. Okay, cool. So let's do a little bit of the recap. So in January, I launched a new podcast called Ranking Revolution, and it was going to be for marketing and SEO professionals. I interviewed probably like 15 people or so, 15, 20 people, 15 maybe, and then did a handful of solo episodes. There were roughly 45 to 50 episodes. My plan was to grow it, get some listeners, and then sell it to an agency. After several months, I realized it wasn't growing how I hoped. And then a few weeks later, I just ended the misery and stopped producing new shows. The good part is I can use the content and republish it over on the Doug.Show. Usually I'll put sort of a little intro and outro and say, hey, this is from the other show, blah, blah, blah. But the interviews are solid. There's probably a couple of them that are a bit out of date. The ones related to affiliate marketing and specific SEO tactics. But the main thing is it didn't grow like I hoped. I could try to blame like SEO and the industry changing, but there's a couple issues. One, I think maybe Corey even mentioned this in an email he sent to me. The audience in the topic area was almost too close to the Doug.Show topics. So there wasn't as big of a draw for like other people to go find it. The other thing is while I have a good network in the SEO community, I don't attend events and I'm not actively like nurturing the relationships that I have in the SEO industry. So that means I have fewer connections for people to say like, hey, Doug's doing a good show. Why don't you check out his stuff? Like that's not happening. Plus, if I was at industry events like conferences, then I could potentially talk to vendors who would sponsor the show or buy it. That was the idea, is like an agency that is big enough to have extra budget to try to launch a podcast. They potentially would buy the show from me. And my thought was, I have the systems and the know-how to set it up, and I can grow it and then sell it, and then it'll be a cool story. Turns out I can start a show pretty easily. I had enough contacts to do some of the networking and get the interviews, but I wasn't putting in the time to actually grow the show. And I realized that I wasn't going to, and that I didn't want to, and then I just stopped doing it. So that was a little bit of wasted time overall, but it was fun to start it. And I had thought about it for at least a year, and I wouldn't leave it alone and just move on. So I decided, hey, I should check it out. All right. I'm going to pause here, and I sent this out to a couple people. And I have a couple guitar solo performances that I can show you here. Whoops, that was the wrong button. So I'm going to pause here for a second. I'll be back in about a minute. All right. All right. So another thing that I was working on was a book with my friend Carl Jensen. He and I work on the Mile High Five podcast together, or at least we did. He quit the show. So that's another story we'll get to in a second. Anyway, he and I were working on a book for roughly like a year and a half or so. And it was a book on laziness or anti-productivity. And we split it up. We worked on it for a while. And Carl has a lot of projects that he's working on. So he never finished. So the other thing, the irony of working on a book on laziness is, it's hard to do it. The funny part is neither of us are lazy. We actually put a decent amount of time into it. But Carl has way too many projects on. He's the kind of guy who has like too many projects. So many of them are 90% done, and it's, lower priority to work on the book. He has some kids. He has 2 kids. So that's a big responsibility to have, support the family and everything. So I think he was very close. I think he was like thousands of words from being finished, but the reality is getting the first draft done is just a tiny little fraction of the overall work. I would say maybe you're 20% done. And I wanted to do audiobook. I wanted to do a pretty strong marketing push. And the thing is, we would have had to spend a lot of time on editing. So all that said, it was a good experience. I think I wrote maybe like 50 pages or so. We were aiming for around 100 pages total. And maybe I had more than that. I can't remember, because we were going to end up with like probably 25 to 40% more words than we needed. And that was going to be distilled down and edited down, which is a good way to go. So obviously we still have the draft, but I would say I haven't looked at it at all this year. I finished last fall with my part, and that just kind of sat on the back burner, and I wasn't pushing it too hard. Again, book on laziness. What are you going to do with that? Next, Mile High Fi. Great podcast. At some point I can't remember when, call it August, Carl quit the show. He was like, I can't do the show anymore. And I was like, all right, I'm going to keep on going. We recorded like a farewell episode. So he was like, I got to do some other stuff, which was fine. But I enjoy the show a lot. I like podcasting so much. I started another podcast and then had to kill it. But the cool part is Mile High Fi is something like 10 times bigger than the Doug Show. And the audience has bigger sort of potential. Especially now we're looking at content sites. It's sort of like winding down, and perhaps I look for a new direction. I was thinking about that when I was walking the other day, just like I could like refocus the Doug Show, right? I called it the Doug Show so I could switch it around and do other stuff if I wanted to. And it is totally possible I could do that. But anyway, Mile High Fi, super fun. And there's potential for more growth. I haven't, Carl and I didn't spend too much time actually trying to grow the show. And I had, good ideas overall, but we never executed on it. And, like I said, Carl was often so busy. We were cramming our recording time into like, of just a few days a month or so, which isn't terrible, but it was like long stretches where he or I was traveling and it was more difficult to do. And I often recorded with like a guest host. So my plan here was to have guest hosts sit in with me. I have the studio's back here. We shoot right back there. There's a couple more mics back there. We could actually have 4 people here. And I was like, I'll get other folks to record with me and be a co-host. And that's been great. There's a variety. It helps promote the other people's stuff if they have something. And sometimes like the person that I have as a guest host has a much bigger following and audience, and that actually brings more people to the show. One thing I need to do next year is actually be a guest on other shows. So around the same time as when Carl quit, I was sending around a couple emails to some of my friends to ask to be on their show. I'm not promoting anything, so that might make it a little easier now. Like no one wants to hear like self-promotion of stuff. And perhaps people were a little more nervous when I had the courses out there. They were thinking, hey, Doug's trying to sell something. But I never did unless they asked about it, which sometimes that's literally the topic area. So Carl quit the show, but I'm continuing on. I've gotten very good feedback from listeners that they miss Carl, but they enjoy the show. They like where I'm taking it and driving it that way. So Jay says this. Welcome, Jay. Merry Christmas. Thoughts on building an age domain site to sell guest posts? It could be possible, but I would say, nah, probably not. I think it could be an interesting way to do a little money grab, but at the end of the day, it's probably a waste of time. You can earn a little money, but you'll be selling to, this area is not where my interest is. And I would encourage people like, hey, if you're really interested in SEO, like you can go for it. But you'd be better off. I don't know what the answer is, but you'd be better off if you did an okay job. If you did an okay job in an industry that was growing instead of an industry that is retracting. I'm not going to say SEO is going to be dead. There will be SEO, relevant things. Wesley says this. I'm using SEO for local stuff on the subway. The skills are useful at least. Yeah, I could totally buy that. And like SEO is a thing, like understand keywords. It'll help you on YouTube, help you other places. But it's like, you'd be way better off like working on some AI related thing where you don't even have to be that good, but you're part of a growing industry versus like SEO where it's like people don't have confidence in SEO. When you hear just like regular people talking about how Google search sucks, then it's not that. Like if they're talking about it, it's not a good spot. So I would say you could earn a little bit of money on an age domain, but it's like, don't waste your fucking time. Work on something else. All right, swinging back, let's talk about vacation time. So I went to Cuyahoga Valley near Cleveland, that's in Ohio, for the total eclipse. The total eclipse was absolutely fucking amazing. I saw it in 2017 in Idaho. And if you haven't seen it, and you've seen like a 99% coverage of the sun, it's not quite as impressive. Even if you see 99%, going from 99% to the 100% total eclipse is a world of difference. It's absolutely fucking amazing. If you have a chance to see it, do it. So I took a good photo, which I think I can let me see if I can easily share Eclipse. Let's see if I could just search for that and actually see. Is that a good image? Oh yeah. So I'm going to see if this works. Oh, hold on a second. I'm all over the place, folks. All right, cool. I can show you this really easy, I think. All right. So you might know I like photography and stuff. Hold on, I'm going to see if I can just drag it on here. Nope. Yep. Did that work? Yeah, you guys see the eclipse? See that? So I took that photo. Can you all see that? I think you can. Probably. So I took that photo right there, and I used a Canon T7i in a 300 millimeter f4 camera, lens there. And I used a 2x converter, and it was absolutely amazing. We got very lucky in Ohio. It rained for 2 days beforehand. And then it chilled out, and we had beautiful weather that day. We thought there were a couple clouds like going through, but once we hit totality, it was like 2.5 minutes, and you could actually see, the prominences, and totally amazing. So super fun to do. And I think, how do I get rid of this? Okay, there we go. We're back. We're back there. All right. And it was really cool. I did a little studying beforehand, watched a few YouTube videos to learn. And then I actually bought an app that sort of guided you, like when you should put the filter on and when you should take off the solar filter. So for the photo of the total eclipse, you take off the filter. And the thing is, like, it worked out so good. Like, the image looks fucking amazing. When I would look through like astronomy books, like that was the quality of the image that I would see. And I potentially could have tweaked some of the other like bracketing and some of the other details like that. But overall, the image looks absolutely insane. So super cool. If you can make it to see a total solar eclipse, you should do it. It's sort of indescribable and really awesome. So that was cool. The other thing is we tried to go visit national parks. So we went to Cuyahoga Valley. We went to Indiana Sand Dunes, which is right outside of Gary. And then we also went to Mammoth Cave, which is a great park. We went through one of the cave tours there, and looks like a really fun park. I drove by it several times within, a few hundred miles, because I think is it off 65? Is that right? Yeah, sounds right. It's off 65, and cool park overall. So I would say, if you have a chance to go to Mammoth, check it out too. All right, let's hit the chat again here. And people could see, oh yeah, Corey says there's bigger fish to fry out there versus like selling guest posts. And Jay says, are those Filipino tattoos? I look more muscular and macho now. Thanks. Yeah, it is. It's the Filipino sun and stars here. I'm half Filipino for the people that don't know. And then I just stuck with the tribal theme. All right. Jay says, top monetization methods for digital marketers, not including YouTube. I mean, I think it's the same shit, right? To be fair, I'm not necessarily the best person to ask because I'm not searching for stuff. So, number one, monetization method is probably digital courses. Courses or online courses, right? Courses. Highly profitable. Usually, like if you're producing it yourself, then the people want to learn from you and you can't beat the margins. The software is very easy to use. You can set up a course in no time. You could have a written course if you wanted to. And platforms like Kajabi, you have email integration, you have a community integrated, you have a podcast integrated, you have the funnel design, you have the email list and the courses, and there's probably like 3 other things too. And basically that's probably the best way to monetize. So courses, number one. The other two, I would say probably affiliate, and then direct advertising is probably very good too. And you mentioned not including YouTube, but the thing I'll mention is like YouTube, like AdSense and ads, like the native ads on there is a horrible way to monetize. If you're doing that, you don't realize how poorly. And I think there's still, there's a friend of mine who his channel is growing, and I think they're still running ads on it. And I'm like, you could sell ads to the people in the industry and have like direct deals, especially since they've never run ads. If they do like a live read, that'll be so much more valuable than whatever bullshit kind of ads pop up that people, I mean, basically it's companies trying to advertise on your channel, and that's not a great way to earn money, unfortunately. So what did I say? Courses, affiliate, and then direct deals. Yeah. That's probably the top ways. I'm trying to think, like, there's not, I mean, sell your own products. And the thing is, like, the top 3 is based on just my opinion. I have literally no data. Probably, I mean, I think better than running ads would be to sell your own product. But if you don't have a product, then it may not be a good idea. And if the margins aren't that great on your product, then maybe you're better off selling ads. So it just depends on you and your skill set overall. But what I would say is, I think starting a YouTube channel or video on any platform is probably a really good idea, because you will develop skills that are transferable to other platforms. If you want to get a job somewhere, or if you need to get a job somewhere, then it's a great skill to have, because especially if you have like a channel where you're like, yeah, I've done this, I've grown it, like I know how to do it. Like, there's a huge amount of value in that, and not that many people have the skill. One side note, as we're recapping the year here, I also volunteered for it's a startup accelerator for like local entrepreneurs. It's called E for All, and they sort of focus on like local entrepreneurs that are typically underrepresented. So women, minorities, other folks that typically are underrepresented as entrepreneurs. It sort of caters to them. There's no specific preference that I know. I actually don't know the selection, but they need mentors. So I did it in 2020, but I hopped back on and did it this past spring, and I'll keep doing it. It's only about an hour a week. So they've actually shortened the amount of time that you're actually obligated to help, which is helpful, because it used to be more. So anyway, I'm doing that again. It's pretty rewarding, pretty fun. And like I said, it's only an hour a week. So not a huge time commitment. So recommend people check that out if you want to get back and help your local entrepreneurs in your community, which is great. All right, I'm going to pause here for a second. I got another tune. This one I worked on this year for a decent amount of time. It took me a little time, but really fun working on it. All right, that was a fun one. Pretty tough, but great arrangement overall. So I spent a decent amount of time playing guitars this year, which is so fun. Highly recommend it. I I love playing, even if it's not not like a natural ability. And you know what? You hear people say that. It's like, oh, you must be, I don't have, I can't play an instrument or whatever. It turns out I just spent a huge, long amount of time working on it. Sure, some people get it easier than others, but it turns out it just takes a lot of hours. And I think, if people are able to do that when they're younger, when they don't have as much stuff going on, like when they're a teenager, they can just like play and practice for hours on end, and their brain is a little more malleable in those years. They're able to pick it up a little faster. But anyway, it's been really fun. And did I buy a couple guitars this year or just one? I think I just bought one. But I found a pretty good deal for a Gibson Les Paul. I was looking for a special, and it turns out there was a special produced that didn't have P90 pickups. It actually had humbuckers, and it was sort of a special run. But I mean, the thing is, the guy who was a pro musician, a touring musician, he sort of sold it and priced it based on what he paid for it, not what a new one would cost or what the market value was. And then I negotiated, right? I made an offer that was a little less than what he offered, but he accepted it. So I ended up getting it for a very good price, which I can tell you was like, it was $625. I paid $625, and it's not as fancy as some of the other Les Pauls out there, but I was like, I really kind of want to have a Gibson, and I was kind of looking for like a more like workhorse, not a super special one or super expensive one, which I'll show you real quick. Yeah, so it's like a mahogany body. It doesn't have the maple cap here, and like I said, it has the humbuckers, not P90s, which is typical for a Les Paul special. And I like that you could actually see the wood grain on here. And the other thing is it has this little cutout right here, so it's a little bit more comfortable. A regular Les Paul would just it would be mostly flat, maybe a little bit carved, but it wouldn't have the cutout. Overall, this makes it lighter too. Les Pauls are typically pretty like weighty. I didn't weigh this one, but it's actually lighter than a lot of the others. It plays great, feels really comfy. All right, and let's hit some more questions. And I see Jay has a big hitter. First, we'll go back to this one. He did say, I look more muscular and macho now. So appreciate it. That is what I'm going for. All right. Jay says, what happened to your channel? How are you making a living? No more affiliate. So highly recommend you check out my other show. It's called Mile High Fi. And couple things. So what happened to the channel? One thing is the interest level in niche sites and keyword research and blogging basically dropped off. So Jay, if you haven't been around as much recently, you may not know, but yeah, like someone mentioned, I talked about it, like Authority Hacker shut down their courses. It was super profitable. I said courses are great because the margins are so high. That is very true. So basically the interest level dropped because AI content sort of flooded the market. Google algorithm updates really disrupted the ability for people to get SEO traffic. And many people, even some very big sites, Jay, you may not know this, but sites that were featured on Google as success stories were hit by the helpful content update. It's been very dramatic, and I covered it for a little while and then kind of got away from it because it was like watching a train wreck and then talking about it. It was horrible, right? So people were making like a little on the side up to hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. And then their traffic dropped by like 90%, and so did their income. So they went from making like more than, or a full-time income enough to like run a company and like have other writers and really do well, to probably making like like under, $25,000 a year, basically. So going from really very successful and, earning as much as like a surgeon or a high level corporate partner attorney, to earning barely enough to pay their mortgage. So the interest level pretty much dropped to like almost, you could check out other people in this space and they have dropped. The other thing, and I thought about, I have a template, sort of a kind of an outline of the sort of the fall of niche sites. I think it could be an interesting video. I typically don't do the video essay type thing, but if you look back at interviews that I was doing in 2015 to 2020, it was like video after video of, here's a beginner who is making $2,500 a month. Here's a beginner who I interviewed before, and after a year, they're making $10K a month, year over year, and they're doing awesome. They have an email list. Most of the interviews were that. And I have probably over 100 hours, if I look back through the archive, of interviews with people talking about that stuff. Those are very popular, and we love those stories, right? It's like a rags to riches type story. Someone learned, they discovered something new, and then they're telling their story. And there were people there were musicians, there were IT professionals, there were lawyers, there were project managers, there were just across the board, single mom, married, working on the road, like whoever you're thinking of, there was probably someone I interviewed. Then those became like fewer and farther between. And then in the last year, after the helpful content updates, instead of having success stories, it was like, I was making $25,000 a month. Now I'm struggling to get by. So there's a bunch of those, which are not very fun to do. And people are like, well, I'm following Google's advice and I'm doing this and that. And it didn't fucking work. And then more sites got hit. And then there's other drama. So anyway, so that's what happened to the channel. The other thing is, fortunately, thank goodness, I wasn't running ads. And overall, I didn't need to earn anything from the channel. I was selling courses before. That was good. I was selling some ads sometimes. Still do that a little bit, trying to sort of rekindle that now that there's more advertising outside of our space. So previously it would be like agencies advertising on the show, which was very profitable. However, over time, some of these agencies have gone away. I suspect some other agencies that have been serving the content site community, those are going to have to pivot or they're going to go under. So I think that's probably going to happen. And then, okay, so how do I make a living? Well, I do earn a little bit from some light advertising, not very much, all right? Not very much. You can look back at my channel and look at the views that I used to get years ago to what I'm getting now. And I'll publish some videos and they'll get like 100 views. But the good part is I wasn't doing it for the money before. I was doing it because I liked doing it. And I was very careful to produce content that I enjoyed producing and not getting tied down to advertising and that sort of thing. So that was very key, because you will see people burn out, or they just stop doing it because they didn't do something that they were enjoying anyway. So I was very careful to do that. So I do earn a little bit from that kind of stuff. The other thing is, when a lot of people were reinvesting everything like back into their websites, I was not doing that. I was not financial advice. I was investing in index funds, basically. Consult your professionals. This is just entertainment. This is not financial advice at all. So I was pulling money off the table. I would reinvest some when appropriate, but I was basically looking at the affiliate site in SEO industry as extremely risky, which there were debates in the past, and people would be like, oh, this is just like a playbook. This is repeatable over and over again. And there were certain portions that for certain parts of time, for certain spans of time, it would be repeatable, but not always. And as time went on, it became less and less repeatable. By then, I wasn't building sites in any sort of volume. I just had like one site that I was working on actively, and then a couple that I ignored. But basically, I took a ton of money off the table and invested in other places. So some people invested in like local businesses, or they bought other existing like e-commerce sites or whatever, right? There's all sorts of different business models. I overall definitely don't like working for other people, but I was investing in total stock market index fund type things. And over the past 10 years, I can't remember. I feel like if you look at the historical returns from the last 10 years or so, it's very high. It's like way more than like what we project for the average, which is like, say like 7 to 9% or so. And it's more like 14%. S&P 500 this year, 2024. Anybody know what the return is? It's about 25%. It's high, very high. And again, we project about 8%. So 25% through the roof. And what happens is, it's not going to do that every year, but what you end up with over 5 years, you're probably going to be up. When you look at 10 years, I think historically, like 10 years, you're up. You're going to be up like 100% of the time if you look at historical data. So overall, I de-risked very well. And what do I do to make a living? I'm semi-retired now. So that's the thing. My wife just retired. And I'm doing less work overall. So I'm waiting. I have interest in producing shows like this, Mile High Fi. And when I look at everything, I'm like, I like producing the content. I like having the conversations. There's always some admin stuff that's not as fun. Negotiating with vendors or whatever, negotiating with advertisers. But overall, it's fun. So what I think I want to do, at least for the short term, hold on, is to produce content and have some advertisers. And because I don't need to earn as much as I was before, I have flexibility. So I could work with like partners that I specifically want to work with. All right. So overall, generally no more affiliate in the way that you're thinking. I do have some affiliate arrangements with companies like Mint Mobile, Trust and Will, some other stuff more on the personal finance side. And there's some other, partners that I work with, like I said, affiliate wise, but it's not the major part. And I'm not specifically producing content typically to like promote the thing. Occasionally there'll be a video, a specific sponsored video or a dedicated video, and that's fine. Got to pay the hosting fees, like the software fees. There's so much software that people use and that I need. So overall, very long answer to that question. But yeah, I'm kind of waiting. I got a question like, oh, what should we be working on? And what are you working on? I'm kind of waiting around. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities, but there's a good chance I'm not going to jump on the very next thing. I'm not even going to be, I talked about the Amazon influencer program. I never signed up or tried to do it. I'm just not that interested in it. All right. DJ Chuck. All right. Any more questions out there? I'm going to hit a couple of these. You got 10 plus years in the industry, which is impressive. It's been a great run. I trust whatever you pivot to, you'll be good. And Chuck also says, good luck to everyone else. Hope you find success in 2025. That's commensurate to how much dedication you put in. And Josh says, good luck to 2025. Never give up, just pivot. Yeah. And I think, a lot of this stuff is like, if you could just work on something for really a pretty long time, you're going to be okay. That's, you have to apply some logic there, but yeah, I tend to be effective at working on long-term projects overall. And the other part, like I said, producing this type of content, podcast and YouTube on my own terms, it's very, it's easy to do because I practice a lot. But the other part is I do have the systems in the studio set up. So I can like walk down here, turn on the camera, start Ecamm live, turn on the lights that are set up all the time, and I'm ready to go. It takes like 30 seconds. It's very fast. And I removed a lot of the barriers from, the early years. I didn't have a dedicated space, and I would have to set up and take down the lights, which is not too much. It just takes, say, 5 minutes setting up and then 5 minutes taking down. So it's not that bad, but it's kind of a pain in the butt. It's just like 3 or 4 things like that. And then it makes it not fun to do. So the fact that I could just flip on a couple switches is huge. Derek, what's up? Good to see you. Derek, we've known each other since the start, I remember us exchanging emails and stuff probably in 2013. Yeah, so I was very stubborn. To your point, Chuck, yeah, I've been doing it for about 10 plus years, and I was just very stubborn. I got lucky, good timing overall. And that's one other thing is like, I think for a long time, maybe all the way up until like this year. So say up until 2023 or so, I was like, oh man, I'm pretty smart. Like I figured some stuff out. That's why I did well. I think I just got lucky with the timing. I just happened to be around. And by the way, it was sort of churned up like in 2013. It was after the Panda algorithm update, and some people were like leaving the industry, and it was a little bit unclear. Like it was a time maybe similar to this. Of course, AI is a whole different animal these days, but like, I think there was a period that lasted for a few years. And to my point earlier, like I basically did an okay job. I wasn't that great, but I had good timing. So I think if you're just in the right industry at the right time when it's growing, you'll be in a good spot. And I just like stuck around for a long enough time. There were dozens of people that got started at the same time as me. And then for whatever reason, it didn't work out for them. And then they stopped blogging or producing whatever content. And then they just, kept working, or they pivoted to something else or whatever. But like, I stuck with it for a long enough time. All right. I think that's it for today. Thanks everyone for hopping on. It was a good little recap of the year. Thank you for asking some questions. So it gave me a chance to answer stuff instead of purely just going through my calendar and talking about what I've done, I would leave you with a couple thoughts. I think there are a lot of opportunities out there. It is not clear what they are, so that makes it an even better opportunity. And if you can get into a spot in an industry that's growing, I think you'll be in good shape. For me, I usually don't do end of year recaps or set a bunch of goals or anything like that. I think I do it just through the year. But I do know this year, just like probably the last 5 years, I've been doing just a little bit less work than I did before. And it's been great. And I think I'm going to keep doing that. I say no to more things more often. And I know when I look at my calendar, it feels better to just have some open days. So I'm going to be doing a little bit more of that as well. Turns out that's not as exciting for people to hear about. And I do realize it's largely unrelatable. So I know maybe to Jay's question earlier, like if I was like, hey, I'm starting a thing and I don't know how it's going to work out and I'm trying to grow it, like that's a little bit more interesting than hearing me talk about how I'm not doing work. I'm very self-aware and I realize it's not exciting to listen to me talk about how I don't have to work that much. But I appreciate you listening, and I like to interview people about stuff that they're working on. So I am thinking about that sort of thing. I did get a request to interview more SaaS founders. So there are plenty of them out there, and a lot of people, they want to talk to me anyway. So maybe able to work some of that out. I would say you should also look for more newsletter content. Please check out the interview that I did with Michael and the one with Jazz as well. Very inspiring. And after I talked to them, I'm like, I need to start a local newsletter. Luckily, I don't have the drive to do that. So I'm not going to do it. I think it would be another thing that I don't follow through with. But I think if you treat it properly, it is probably one of the best opportunities out there. All right, heading out. Thanks everybody for popping on, and we'll catch you potentially next week. I may take it off since it'll be New Year's Eve, but everybody have a good rest of the week. Merry Christmas, Merry holidays, whatever you celebrate or don't celebrate. We'll catch you later. Thanks.